Hi folks, my name's LJ and I'm that leadership guy. On this channel, we look at fictional characters to find out what we can learn from them, both for leadership and our everyday lives. Today, I want to look at an important concept from the field of behavioral economics. I know how that sounds, believe me, but bear with me guys, it's gonna be fun, I promise, as I will show you how it applies to several different fictional characters all across the board. I love talking about cognitive biases as I like the influence that they have on our behavior, and we will certainly revisit several of them in the future, so please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's for free. And it helps a great deal, especially this early on in the channel's existence. The idea behind today's video came when I watched Better Call Saul, actually for the first time now during the Christmas holidays. In one of the earlier episodes, protagonist Jimmy McGill says something that immediately caught my attention. Let's take a quick look.
Shouldn't you at least try the job before you say no?
Waste everyone's time, including my own? Kim, I appreciate your concern, but it's not for me. I don't want it.
Jimmy, do you remember how long you studied for that bar? How hard you worked? All that effort. You're just gonna toss it away?
That's the sunk cost fallacy.
Wait, the what?
The fallacy of sunk cost. It's what gamblers do. They throw good money after bad, thinking they can turn their luck around.
The sunk cost fallacy is so interesting because it's one of the most common biases you'll ever encounter. And certainly not only in a business context, but in your very everyday lives as well. Now, Jimmy just explained the sunk cost fallacy, but I want to dig at least a little bit deeper. The SCF, also called escalation of commitment, was first described by Barry M. Starr back in 1976. Basically, it says that you feel so committed to decisions you've made in the past that even when they have proven to be completely ineffective so far, you will still invest further resources into them. Starr and other later researchers named three characteristics that define a sunk cost fallacy. First of all, you have invested a substantial amount of time, money, effort or emotions into a project or a decision or whatever you're dealing with here. It has yielded only or mainly negative results so far, and you have the choice to leave the project, change the decision or whatever, but you still decide to go ahead as you have already invested so much into it. Of course, there are specific reasons for this kind of behavior, and some, but not necessarily all of them, might be entirely irrational. For example, you could just be a glass half full kind of guy. Or you need to keep going because otherwise your self-image would suffer too much. Or you simply don't want to lose face in front of others for changing your mind on a subject you've wholeheartedly promoted for some time now. I don't want to dig into these factors too much as this would turn into a half-hour video, but I think you get the gist. I think most of us have experienced the sunk cost fallacy in their personal lives in one form or another. I, for example, love to have all seasons of my favorite TV shows on DVD, even if the latter seasons completely suck. Looking at you, 2.5 men there, and totally neglecting the fact that DVDs are on the brink of extinction anyways. I have started my collection years ago, so I just have the feeling I gotta keep going on as I have invested so much time, money and kind of love into it. Anyways, let's move on and look at some examples of how the sunk cost fallacy is dealt with by fictional characters. In Michael Mann's amazing 1995 picture Heat, Robert De Niro plays a criminal mastermind named Neil McCauley, who, without even mentioning the words sunk cost, provides a very good yet extreme recommendation of how you could deal with this type of fallacy.
Guy told me one time, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
This is a philosophy that Macaulay strictly adheres to in the movie, making him a very successful gangster who has never been caught by the police. However, I assume it might not be very feasible to you, just never to get too attached to anything. And personally, I think the life Macaulay leads might be rich if we are talking money, but kind of sad in terms of personal relationships. If we look at how unattached and, well, without a home he is in the movie, we might almost infer that having at least some sunk cost in our lives is actually a good thing. I don't think I need to mention that in the end, Macaulay breaks with this typical behavior of his and seeks revenge on someone, leading to him being finally brought to justice by Lieutenant Vincent Hanna, played by Al Pacino in an unforgettable performance.
Because she got a great ass! And you got your head all the way up it! Jesus.
Another example for the sunk cost fallacy can be found in the same fictional universe in which Better Call Saul takes place, which, as you remember, led me to deal with this topic in the first place. In the banger series Breaking Bad, Walter White gets into the crystal meth business because he needs a way to make enough money to leave behind to his family after his cancer diagnosis. When he finally owns quite a fortune, he doesn't just leave the drug business, but still keeps going on with it, leading to his ultimate downfall. Of course, one could argue that this is rather because he has become addicted to the success and to having a purpose in his life, but still I think that knowing Walter White, at least part of his motivation to keep on manufacturing drugs is that he feels he has just invested way too much into it to just stop and go away. Looking at another series we already know quite well, I could also point out Stannis Baratheon from the HBO show Game of Thrones as one more example for the sunk cost fallacy, when he's leading his army to certain doom in the battle for Winterfell, just because he feels he has come too far and sacrificed way too much to turn around. However, I want to deal with Stannis at great length in a dedicated video, but if you've kept count, that already makes 3 very famous fictional characters who have ultimately fallen victim to the power of the sunk cost fallacy. Let's take a look at one last example which at first glance might seem a bit lighter and which doesn't share quite the same tragic outcome as the other ones did. Still, somehow it might be hitting much closer to home for some of you. Who wouldn't remember one of the most iconic moments of what's arguably the most beloved sitcom of all times?
Hi, Ross. Take the Emily. Take the Rachel. Emily.
I think everybody, at least my age, knows where he's been when Ross said the wrong name at the altar, basically ending his second marriage before it really began. Or actually he didn't, as his fiancée, Emily, still insisted on getting married anyways, as the ceremony was already rolling with all the guests present and so on, so you don't really want to just leave, right? I think it was important to include this brief example because it gives me the opportunity to at least mention that the sunk cost fallacy has very severe implications for relationships. We all know the trope of couples only staying together because they share an apartment, have just bought a house, want to raise the kids together, or simply because of all the emotional and/or financial investment that has been put into the relationship so far, no matter how toxic it might have become along the way. This is not the focus of this channel, but I still feel that it's important to highlight this issue. And if you should have the feeling to be in a toxic relationship, you certainly should seek the help of professionals or people you trust. Don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy here. So this leads us to the conclusion of today's video. What did we learn today? Well, first of all, we got to know the sunk cost fallacy itself. An unjustified overattachment to things we have invested in the past and we are just not willing to let go. To overcome the sunk cost fallacy, we could avoid any attachments we would not walk out of immediately if need be. As I already pointed out, I think this would lead to a rather boring and dull life without too many risks and attachments, although I think that Neil Macaulay would beg to differ there. And I'm absolutely sure it's rather unfeasible for me and probably most of you. But what can we do instead? For once, a constant, brutally honest reassessment of the situation you're in is advisable here. Check pros and cons, do whatever you need to do to take any subjectivity out of your personal equation for whatever important decision you're currently dealing with. Lastly, just learn to be happy and confident with who you are and where you're at. It will make dealing with the sunk cost fallacy way more easy if changing a past decision won't destroy your entire self-image. So this is it for today. I hope you had some fun and maybe my little video was a bit insightful for you. If so, please do not forget to leave a like or a subscription, as this helps the channel immensely. Also, you won't miss out on any future videos, which, if you like this one, might be a good thing, right? In the meantime, thanks for watching and have a great time.